Hello, my name is Melina Sanchez, and this is my presentation or my media analysis project and a presentation on how movies shape young girls' ideas of romance. So, my topic introduction. Children love watching Disney Channel movies because they are funny and have many stories that can be entertaining. And while watching this kind of content is harmless, certain aspect of these kinds of movies can create unrealistic expectations or standards for young kids whose minds are still developing. A certain aspect that I want to cover is how these kinds of movies display romance. Characters in these kinds of movies usually fall in love quickly, conflicts get solved easily, and everything always ends up perfectly. So, this can give young kids or children the wrong ideas about love, dating, and what real relationships look like. So, the media piece I chose is the movie Starstruck that was released in 2010 on Disney Channel. This movie is about an ordinary teen girl named Jessica Olsen who accidentally meets a famous singer named Christopher Wilde. After they meet, they slowly begin to form feelings for one another and then have to overcome obstacles that come with his fame. So, why did I choose this piece? I chose Starstruck for my media piece because it's aimed directly for preteens or teen girls who are still learning what love is and how relationships look like. I specifically say girls because the media portrays girls to value relationships, romance, and emotional connections, which makes them more vulnerable to become influenced by these unrealistic standards. This movie presents fantasy romance stereotypes like a handsome famous pop star, an ordinary everyday girl, instant sparks, and being special or chosen, which can shape girls' expectations about love and attention in unrealistic ways. This movie presents a celebrity fan relationship, which is a scenario that a lot of girls fantasize about and dream about, which can influence young viewers into these ideals. Because these movies connect a regular everyday life of a teenage girl with a fairy tale kind of romance story, I think it could be a powerful example of the message that Disney sends about what love should feel like. And for these reasons, I want to analyze how Starstruck influences romantic and relationship ideas in young girls and how these portrayals affect patterns of unrealistic relationship expectations in the media. So, how did this impact me? Or how does this issue impact me? So, I think watching this movie, I guess, in particular, or just these kinds of movies as a young girl, shaped my understanding of romance in ways I didn't even realize until later in life. These movies made me believe that love should be dramatic and magical and involved, grand gestures. And I had the idea that if a boy made a mistake, that he should go above and beyond to win me back. Just like how in the movie, and Christopher Wilde did something similar to that for Jessica at the end of the film, which I'll talk about more later on. This created unrealistic expectations about how conflict works in real relationships. I feel like this movie also these movies influence how I see myself. I remember I began to think that in order to be loved by someone special, I had to be extraordinary or different from any other girl, and that those beliefs affected my self-esteem, especially during times when I felt, ordinary or not good enough. I remember comparing myself to other prettier girls, and I felt a lot of pressure to be unique or exceptional in order to get attention. And then I remember when I was getting older, this kind of mindset also had me seeking validation from men and relying on their attention or approval to feel valued. So even in past relationships, I remember that I realized that I would have expectations for my significant other to give me that same kind of attention that the boys in the movies I would watch would give to their girlfriends. So I would expect, dramatic gestures and instead of, really communicating and taking accountability and trying to have healthy ways to solve conflict. I had to accept eventually that real relationships don't work like those fake ones in the movies that I watched when I was young. And then many movies like Starstruck have this effect on so many other girls by teaching them that being worthy of love depends on being chosen by a special boy. And that relationships revolve around dramatic movies rather than communication. And that happiness comes from being validated by someone with status or charm. I feel like that can, create that idea that a girl's value is tied to how a boy sees her, and that love happens instantly, and that being desired by someone important or high status is a sign of personal worth, which can, I feel like that message can shape how girls understand romance way before they actually experience it for themselves. So, how does this impact society and the intended audience? So, because Starstruck was created for preteens and teenage girls, I feel like these romantic ideals can shape how young viewers understand real relationships. So, in the article, Happily Ever After, a content analysis of romantic ideals in Disney princess films, the authors argue that children and adolescents learn about romance from the media, especially when these movies make romantic moments look positive and desirable. So when Starstruck shows an ordinary girl ending up in a perfect relationship with a rich, famous celebrity, I feel like that can or create the belief that love should feel magical and dramatic, and that destiny brought them together, which can, you know, lead girls into developing these unrealistic standards for their future partners, and expect constant excitement in their relationships, or believes that a perfect partner will make them feel special. And it also shows that the man should present grand gestures when he messes up, which, according to the authors of this article, 9 out of 11 times, males were the dominant pursuers in romantic relationships in Disney movies. I think this connects well to the Starstruck movie, because at the end of the movie, Christopher Wilde, the famous singer, presents his grand gesture to Jessica by singing to her at her high school homecoming in front of all her classmates to apologize for his mistakes, and then follows it up by apologizing on live TV. So here I provided a short clip example of him after he sings to her and what he said afterwards.
I lied about knowing Jessica Olsen, because the truth is I know Jessica Olsen. Jessica Olsen's a terrible navigator and a know-it-all, but she's honest. She makes a promise, she keeps it. She understands me like no one else does. But I'm crazy about her. Jessica, I'm so sorry. I know that I hurt you, and I will never do anything like that again. Just, please, forgive me.
So how does the media item help or can be updated to create positive social change? So I feel like in order to create more positive social changes, I think Disney can come up with more positive movies that show realistic and healthy relationship dynamics, and that can help their, younger viewers build healthier expectations of love and relationships. And instead of the viewers focusing on things like magic and fantasy and being different, they can try and focus, better communication skills and other healthy qualities that come with being in a relationship. So, they in the movies, they can show scenarios in movies where their characters have to go through realistic obstacles, like setting boundaries and working through conflicts, and give, these preteens/teens a good example of what real romance should look like. And I also think they should show characters with more flaws and struggles, so that they don't set these unrealistic beauty standards that girls need to look a certain way or be different from others. So yeah. And then in conclusion, I think the critical analysis is important, because it helps the people watching these kinds of movies and be able to look between the lines of these media pieces and show how it shapes our behaviors and beliefs. So when young kids see these movies that involve relationships, they could, unknowingly be absorbing unrealistic ideas of love and relationships and beauty standards. So I think analyzing this kind of content can allow us to recognize the differences between fantasy and reality, which can help, form healthier expectations. I think doing this presentation helped me a lot to learn how media shapes expectations of younger audiences, especially when it comes to love and relationships and self-esteem. It also helped me see these ideas in a deeper way. When I was growing up, I watched a lot of these kinds of movies, Disney Channel movies, without realizing how strongly they were influencing my own views about love and relationships. And I guess there was always that part of me that took these fictional movies purely meant for entertainment and was actually like creating these crazy expectations in my head for my real relationships. And looking back, I see now that these movies did affect me and my real love life. And these are my references. Thank you for listening.